Hi everybody, Meet the Maker today is here with Steph Jansen in her studio in Ambergate. Steph, it's just lovely being in your studio because I just so adore your work. But I've not seen anything else like it. How did you come to create this really unique style?
Well, I went to art college quite a long time ago, Goldsmiths, and didn't learn to paint and didn't really know what to do when I came out, but I always knew I wanted to be an artist. So I went off and had a family, opened a completely different business, sold that business, and in the meantime I'd come across somebody felting, and I'd been surprised by what you could do with it. I'd seen people make bags and clothes, but I'd never seen somebody make it into art before. So I decided I was going to have a go. And my husband bought me a workshop, 3-hour workshop, and I went along and I fell in love with it. So the first piece I made I was really pleased with, and then I came home with lots of bits and bobs to try. And then I couldn't really get what I wanted out of it, but I kept trying. And then I found somebody who was doing an online course. So I learnt some more skills and learnt more things that you can actually do with the wool that you can't learn in 3 hours. I suppose what gave me my style in the end, or has developed my style, was doing a painting course during lockdown. I did an online course with a Californian abstract painter, and I had to work in acrylics because that's what he works in. And that kind of then made me think, well, I know I don't want to go to paint. I know I want to go back to the felting, although I'd had a 3-month break while I was doing this course. But I had to think about what I could bring back from it, and a lot of it was about design, getting a nice strong design compared to when you get close up and finding the details. So from a distance you go, oh, that's interesting, but then close up you go, oh, I really like the little bits and bobs that you can see on the surface. And obviously felt lends itself to that. You can be quite bold with it, but also you can use lots of little details. Mark making is a bit different. I can't scrape through it particularly or do a mad brush stroke on it. I've got to think about how I can bring some energy to it in a different way. So I started to play with threads, using those as something that could go down quite quickly, like a pencil mark or a quick brush stroke. So sometimes I'll be working on something and I'll think, it's a bit dead, it needs some movement in it, something happening. And I'll just throw something really bright at it. And then leave it there overnight and come back and see if I like it the next day. And often it's exactly what it needs. Another thing that interests me is the history in the landscape. I remember I did A-level history and being taken to see a medieval village, or what was left of one. So noticing the marks on the ground and the lumps where the fields had been worked, and that kind of started an interest. But obviously when you're out in the landscape you notice bumps and things, and you think, well, what might that have been? And one of the things that I got interested in relatively recently is the Derbyshire Portway, which was an ancient trackway across Derbyshire. I think it started in the Iron Age, and a way to get safely from one side of the county to the other. And there's still remnants of it in the landscape now. So quite a few of my pieces are from the Derbyshire Portway, or where it's assumed to have been. But obviously there's things like Roman roads going crisscrossing, all sorts of different paths. And I've got an interest in the fact, when you see a footpath sign and you think, oh, never been down there before. Wonder what's down there. So in some ways, I think a lot of my pieces are little windows and opportunities to discover somewhere new. And a lot of people will come and see them and say, oh, it makes me want to be, it draws me in. I want to find out where that goes.
The pictures you choose to do, are they based on scenes you've visited, photographs you've taken, or do you go and paint somewhere and then translate that into
a bit of both. I walk a lot because of where I am in the Derbyshire. I can walk out of the door and be in the woods within 5 minutes. So yeah, these are all quite familiar parts of the woodland, and the woods up there are particularly good in bluebell season, so that's the colourways that I'm going for. A lot of them, I've gone out walking there and thought, I really like this pathway or this tree, or the light's just fallen beautifully, and the light and the shade is something that I'm really interested in, trying to capture that kind of fleeting moment. But you've also got it against the ancient pathways, the old trees. So there's a kind of a pull between something that's kind of timeless and then something that's gone in a second. And I'm kind of interested in trying to capture some of that.
Okay, I'm going to put my I am an idiot hat on. I say that as though I'm not one, but I'm going to ask questions like, what is felt?
Okay, so felt is made from wool normally. I mean, it's always got wool in it. So I've got fluffy bits of wool here, and I buy it loose and coloured already, and then I mix the colours that I want with carding brushes, and then these loose pieces are put down onto the surface. And when I have a design that's getting there, or when it gets a bit too fluffy, I will cover it with a net curtain, wet it down, and then gently rub the surface. And that rubbing, the friction, starts to pull all the little scales on the surface of the wool together. They kind of link together like Velcro, except unlike Velcro, they don't come back apart again very easily. So once you've felted something thoroughly, it becomes a strong piece of fabric and something that would be tricky to pull apart.
So because it's a natural material, what was it like, if someone was to buy a piece of your art? How long lasting is it?
Well, people often worry about felt being kind of quite easy to ruin, but actually it's quite a strong fabric. It doesn't tend to collect dust, which is an odd thing to say, but people always worry about dust. I've got a soft brush that I just brush them occasionally, but not that often. So actually they'll gather dust more on a frame than on the felt itself, and they'll also gather dust along the top of a piece, but it takes some time for that to be noticeable. I've shown my work at Haddon Hall before in front of medieval tapestries. They're kind of quite old, hundreds and hundreds of years old, and they're made of wool, which is the same material that I'm using. So I think so long as they're treated with respect and shown a little kindness every now and then, they're pretty solid and they should last.
If people who watch this video are interested in learning the techniques, do you run workshops?
I do occasional workshops, probably twice a year. I'll run a couple of workshops close together, and they're for a day to learn. Sometimes people come who've never felted before, but often people have done a little bit and are interested in learning how I felt. But it's always good fun. It's a lovely way to spend the day. It's quite a relaxing thing to do, but also it works your muscles towards the end of the day when you get to the felting stage. But yes, it's a fun thing to do.
So Steph, this is work in action. Tell me what you're doing.
So I'm layering small pieces of the wool. This is mixed wool, but I've also got threads and little bits of fabric. They're all going onto the surface, kind of like paint. So I'm gradually building up different areas, trying to get the strong design before I get too bogged down in the details. It's quite hard to do that sometimes because you get carried away.
So notice in front of you, you have some of your sketches. Is this what you're working to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some sketches that I've done in situ in the woodland that often give me kind of a feel for the sorts of marks that I want to make, or maybe something that I might throw in that just changes the design slightly. Because although I'm working from a photo that I've then kind of simplified, and then to get my design, to get the strong shapes that I want, it's nice to be able to let it become its own thing as I work. So I've got different things in front of me to kind of give me some inspiration, but also often I'll look at the work that I've done in the past, things that have worked well that I want to try and replicate. So I've got work in front of me as well.
And what I'm seeing is you laying the material down. Do you do anything else to fix it in place?
Yeah, so this is getting quite fluffy now, so what I'll do fairly soon is cover it in my net curtain and wet it, and then that rubbing the surface will start to pull the walls together. So I'll do that probably fairly soon on the pieces that I'm working on now. Roll them through without felting them, but just to flatten them. But actually when I'm ready, when the design's finished, or I think I'm there, I'll spend a lot of time, probably a day, rolling, rubbing. I've got these handy blocks that have a bit of texture on them, and I'll rub the surface on top of the net curtain so everything stays in place. And if I'm using soapy water, that allows this to move across the surface without moving the pieces underneath. And that just starts the friction going on the surface and pulls those pieces of wool together.
That's a fascinating tool. Is it homemade, or do they actually come like that?
People make them. I mean, there's different types. That's just one that I like because it's an iron shape, so you can get, if something's not felting easily, you can really get in there with the corner. But there's also quite a nice one that's resin with marbles in it. And that's quite a nice one to hold in your hand, and it's quite heavy, so that helps with the friction. But then I'll also, you'll notice I've got bubble wrap under here, and the bubbles will also help with that friction. So it'll be rubbing from underneath as well as rubbing from on top. And then the pull noodle can be quite handy as well. So I can actually take the whole piece and roll it like pastry across the table.
Wow.
So that's why I'm not going swimming. I have those are quite a handy tool when I'm at that stage. And when it gets to the point where it's all felting, but I want it to get that little bit more felted, I can actually kind of squeeze it like dough and throw it at the table. So that just really finishes it off and makes it really tight. But yeah, it's just using the property of the wool, and interestingly the wool will kind of hold on to everything else that's around, so that's why I can add on little pieces of silk. I use these for little bits of little areas where I want the light to catch, because they'll sit on the surface and just add a little bit of shimmer. So the wool will attach to the silk as well. The silk won't felt, but the wool will felt the silk in. And the same with little pieces of fabric. So if I want to use a little piece of sari silk, say, I was just starting to pull some together, but that I can put this into the surface. If it's got a little bit of an open weave, it will get felted in as well.
This is a very time-consuming process, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yes. So yeah, these pieces can take, the larger pieces, I usually allow myself about 6 or 7 weeks to get 2 big pieces made, because I can't do this all day without a break. I have other things to do with my time, but also it's just, yeah, it's something that you have to take your time at. It's difficult to do it quickly.
It's quite mindful, meditative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absorbing.
And because it's so textured is the word I'm after, and so tactile, it's kind of, it's not just what I'm seeing but what I'm feeling as well while I'm making it. So yeah, this piece here, I'm thinking I can use this as part of the tree trunk that I'm building here. And those colours will kind of will pop through as I put wool on top. So this is just a large piece of net curtain material that I'll gently, very cautiously put on the top. Okay. And then I've got warmish soapy water in here, and I'm just filling up this browse, and then when that's full I can cover the surface, and it will need a fair amount. So you have to be a little bit patient. So I'm just pressing that down. So one of the things that I wanted to say is that there's something very different about taking this sketchbook out into the landscape and taking a place in, or going and visiting a landscape again and again, somewhere that you know very well. And I feel like that comes across in the work that I do. You get a real feel for being present somewhere in a moment in time.
That really comes through in your work. It's beautiful.
Good. I'll just use an old towel. Press some of that water out. So when I'm felting it, this towel doesn't go down until I'm ready to start to dry it, but because I'm midway with this piece, I'm just drying it now. But I can get my pool noodle again and give it a good roll. Actually, the towel will get a fair amount of that water out. And then you can peel back and start to see how the fibres are lying.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So I can only pull back as far as I've wet it.
That's it. No,
It's enough to give you a flavour.
Amazing difference. Wow.
Yeah. So it starts to look more like the felt, but obviously it's not felted yet.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow, Steph, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
A pleasure.
I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.